interestingly, banks, I find them uniquely healthy right now. I think so many learned their lessons from the 2008 global financial crisis and have ratcheted back advance levels. So they just have some decreased exposure. So maybe historically they would have been at 65 or 70% of cost or value on a project. I think today it's pretty customary to be at 55 or 60% advance rates. So a lot of buffer for them and margin for error. So I would say banks are actively lending there. The hard part, frankly, and I think I heard your prior guest even touch on this, the hard part is finding the equity. So if banks are at 55 or 60%, where are you getting that other 40 or 45% of the capital stack necessary to take on a project? And so that's been a bit of a Rubik's Cube, frankly, for the past couple of years as interest rates have spiked and capital has retreated to the sidelines.
What do you do when you're looking, though, at such a constrained labor supply right now in construction, and especially with the prospect of this new administration really, rolling back a lot of the immigrant workforce? Is that concerning to you about how much more building can really happen in the next 4 years?
It is. And I'll tell you, going back to the student housing aspect of our business, we have bought far more existing student housing and did some cosmetic changes to properties than we have done ground up development, simply because those construction costs they really spiked during COVID and caught a lot of attention for supply chain issues, shortage of labor, and other variables. Unfortunately, the cost of construction hasn't plausibly come down to where it's still viable to build ground up construction. Certainly, some folks can get away with it. They'll take on lower margin projects, thinking that maybe down the road the margins will make some sense. But it's been very, very tricky to make numbers work in the ground up construction, whether it's student, multi, or any other asset class.
How about, we talk about student housing. How about senior housing? I mean, all we hear about is how this population's aging and there's going to need to be for more and more senior communities. How do you guys think about that business? Have you looked at that?
We've looked at it, we've participated in it, and we've just paused on it, frankly. It's a very operationally intensive business where you're so dependent on, like I said, it's a running business. So you have your operator who's handling all the day-to-day activities. Oftentimes there can be a bit of a misalignment between operations and ownership of the property. We try to stay away from those situations and just stick to what we know best, which is student and multi.
I got to ask you, though, something that I wonder when I see all of these universities that are like busting at the seams with students and nowhere to put them. Are enrollment rates that much higher, or acceptance rates rather, that much higher? Because right now the sentiment about getting a college education has really never been worse. So I just wonder, are the universities just letting in that many more kids?
A great question, Molly. And I'd say, just like Paul did to start off this segment, office doesn't define how the commercial real estate market is doing. I think you really got to be careful with which student housing markets, which campuses you're at, before you say a broad brush statement about student housing as a whole. There are some schools that are seeing record applications and having the choice to make do we want to go with a record enrollment as well? And they got to be mindful of how much supply, how much infrastructure, let alone classrooms and other space available on campus do they have to accommodate the student population. So it's very school specific from my perspective, and that's where I think Tennessee and Purdue, schools that we're very close to, have done a fantastic job at managing that and drawing demand at the schools.
Right.
Others need to be careful and make sure they're not reenacting your experience, Paul, and students are rolling up to a trailer.